There's a story coming out of Australia that every precious metals investor needs to understand. The Perth Mint, one of the world's most trusted names in gold and silver refining and storage, is facing serious questions about metal that's supposed to be in their vaults. According to reports from Australian financial regulators and investigations by local media, there are discrepancies in the Perth Mint's inventory records. The numbers being discussed range from hundreds of thousands to potentially over 1 million ounces of precious metals where the paperwork doesn't match the physical inventory. And while the exact scale is still being investigated and disputed, even the lower estimates are alarming. We're talking about 200,000 ounces or more of gold and silver that customers believed was allocated to them, sitting in secure storage, but may not be physically there in the way they thought. Right now, as I'm piecing this together from regulatory filings and investigative reports. Comment when you're watching because this is a developing story, and as more information comes out from audits and investigations, we'll track how it unfolds. And if you value breakdowns that expose counterparty risk and systems you're supposed to trust, subscribe and comment FinTalk OG so the algorithm knows you're here for the critical analysis. Now, before I walk through what happened, let me frame why this matters, even if you don't have metal at the Perth Mint. This isn't just an Australian problem. This is a systemic problem that exists wherever paper claims to physical metal exceed the actual metal. The Perth Mint story is a case study in counterparty risk. It's a warning about the difference between owning metal and owning a promise to deliver metal. And it's a lesson in how to verify that what you think you own actually exists. Because if it can happen at the Perth Mint, an institution backed by the Western Australian government with a 120-year history, it can happen anywhere. Here's what I'm going to cover. First, what actually happened at the Perth Mint based on verified reports and regulatory findings. Second, the difference between allocated, unallocated, and pooled storage and why those distinctions matter. Third, how this connects to broader counterparty risk in the precious metals market, from ETFs to storage programs to bullion banks. And fourth, the practical steps you can take to verify your holdings and reduce counterparty risk. Let's get into it. Let's start with what we know. The Perth Mint is a refiner and storage facility owned by the Government of Western Australia through Gold Corporation. They've been operating since 1899. They're a major player in global gold and silver markets. They refine metal, they mint coins and bars, and they offer storage programs where customers can buy metal and have it stored in Perth Mint vaults. These programs include allocated storage, where specific bars are assigned to you, and unallocated storage, where you own a claim to a certain amount of metal but not specific bars. The problem started surfacing publicly in recent years when audits and internal reviews revealed discrepancies between customer account balances and physical inventory. Specifically, there were cases where customers who believed they had allocated metal, meaning specific numbered bars assigned to them, found that the Perth Mint couldn't produce those exact bars. In some cases, the bars had been moved, melted down, or otherwise reallocated without proper documentation or customer notification. In other cases, unallocated customers who expected that the mint held metal to back their claims found that the metal backing those claims was less than the total claims outstanding. According to investigative reporting by Australian media outlets, including the ABC and local financial publications, internal audits discovered inventory management failures. There were cases of bars being lent out to third parties without adequate tracking. There were cases of bars being used for refining operations when they should have been in segregated storage. And there were cases where the paperwork showed metal existed, but the physical inventory count came up short. The estimates of the shortfall have varied. Some reports mention figures as high as 1 million ounces across gold and silver. More conservative estimates put it in the range of 200 to 500,000 ounces. The Perth Mint and the Western Australian government have disputed some of these figures and claim that any discrepancies have been or are being rectified. But the fact that discrepancies existed at all and at meaningful scale is the problem. Now let's talk about what this means structurally. The Perth Mint operates what's called a pooled or fungible model in some of their storage programs. Here's how it works. When you buy unallocated metal from the Perth Mint, you don't own specific bars. You own a claim to a certain weight of metal, say 100 ounces of gold. The Perth Mint is supposed to hold enough physical metal in their vaults to cover all the claims from all the customers. But the metal is pooled. Your 100 ounces isn't sitting in a segregated corner with your name on it, it's part of a larger pool. And the Mint can move metal in and out of that pool as long as the total pool covers the total claims. The problem arises when the Mint lends out metal from the pool or uses metal from the pool for refining or minting operations and doesn't properly account for it. If they lend out 500,000 ounces to a third party, that's 500,000 ounces that's no longer sitting in the vault. But if the customer account balances still show those 500,000 ounces as being held, you have a mismatch. You have more claims than metal. That's fractional reserve precious metals. And if multiple customers tried to take physical delivery at the same time, the Mint wouldn't have enough metal to fulfill all the requests. Allocated storage is supposed to be different. Allocated means specific bars are assigned to you. You get bar numbers. Those bars are supposed to be segregated and held exclusively for you. They're not supposed to be lent out or used for other purposes. But even allocated storage isn't foolproof if the custodian doesn't maintain proper records or if they move bars without authorization. And that's what appears to have happened in some cases at the Perth Mint. Customers who thought they had allocated bars found that the Mint couldn't locate those specific bars or had moved them without proper documentation. Here's the regulatory context. The Perth Mint is regulated by Australian financial authorities. After the discrepancies came to light, there were investigations by ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, and internal reviews commissioned by the Western Australian government. Some of the findings were made public, others remain confidential. But the acknowledgement that inventory management issues existed is public record. The Mint has since implemented new procedures, including more frequent physical audits, improved tracking systems, and changes to how they manage pooled versus allocated accounts. But the damage to trust has been done. Now let's connect this to the broader precious metals market. The Perth Mint situation is not unique. It's a specific example of a systemic risk that exists across the industry. Fractional reserve practices are common in the precious metals market. Here's how it works in different contexts. Bullion banks that offer storage accounts often operate on a fractional reserve basis. They hold some physical metal, but they also lend out metal, lease it, or use it for market-making activities. If you have an unallocated account with a bullion bank, your claim is backed by the bank's promise to deliver, not by specific metal sitting in a vault with your name on it. And if the bank gets into financial trouble, your claim becomes an unsecured liability. You're a creditor, not an owner. ETFs are another example. Some gold and silver ETFs hold physical metal in vaults and provide detailed bar lists with serial numbers. Those are generally safer. But other ETFs or exchange-traded products use derivatives, futures contracts, or unallocated accounts to gain metal exposure. In those cases, you're not owning physical metal. You're owning a financial product that's supposed to track the price of metal. And if the underlying counterparties fail, the ETF's value can deviate from the metal price or even go to zero. Mining company forward sales and streaming agreements are another layer. Some mining companies sell future production forward to raise capital. Investors buy claims to future metal production. But if the mine doesn't produce as expected, or if the company goes bankrupt, those claims can become worthless. And then there are the digital gold platforms, apps, and websites that let you buy fractional ounces of gold or silver and store it digitally. Some of these platforms are fully backed by allocated metal in audited vaults. Others are less transparent about their backing. And in the worst cases, they're essentially Ponzi schemes where early investors get paid with new investor money and there's little or no metal backing the claims. The Perth Mint scandal is a wake-up call because it happened at an institution that was supposed to be rock solid, government-backed, long history, major player. If it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. And the lesson is that paper claims to metal are not the same as physical metal in your possession or in fully allocated, audited, insured storage where you control the withdrawal rights. Now let's talk about how to verify your holdings if you have metal in storage anywhere. Here's a checklist. Step 1. Determine what type of storage you have. Is it allocated or unallocated? If it's allocated, you should have bar numbers and a bar list. If it's unallocated, you should understand that you don't own specific bars and you're relying on the institution's solvency and honesty. If you're not sure which type you have, contact the custodian and get clarity in writing. Step 2. Request a bar list if you have allocated storage. The custodian should be able to provide you with the serial numbers, weights, and purity of the bars assigned to your account. Cross-check those bar numbers against the custodian's published audit reports if they're available. If your custodian can't or won't provide a bar list for allocated storage, that's a red flag. Step 3. Verify that the storage facility is independently audited. Look for third-party audit reports from reputable firms. The audit should include a physical inspection of the metal, verification of bar counts, and reconciliation of customer claims against physical inventory. If the custodian doesn't provide audit reports, or if the audits are infrequent or vague, that's a risk. Legitimate operations are audited at least annually, often quarterly. Step 4. Understand the custodian's insurance and guarantee structure. Is your metal insured against theft, loss, or custodian insolvency? Some facilities offer insurance through Lloyd's of London or other major insurers. Read the fine print. Understand what's covered and what's not. Step 5. Consider taking physical possession if the amount is manageable. If you own a few ounces or a few dozen ounces, keeping it in your own possession eliminates counterparty risk entirely. If you own hundreds or thousands of ounces, allocated storage with a reputable, audited custodian is the next best option. Step 6. Diversify custodians if you have large holdings. Don't keep all your metal with one institution. Split it across 2 or 3 custodians in different jurisdictions. Step 7. Be skeptical of unusually low storage fees. Secure, allocated, insured storage costs money. Legitimate allocated storage typically costs 0.5 to 1% per year of the metal's value, plus insurance. If the fee is significantly lower, dig deeper. Step 8. Monitor your account regularly. Log into your storage account, review your statements, and request updated bar lists at least once a year. Now let's talk about what the Perth Mint situation means for the broader market. First, it confirms that counterparty risk is real even with historically trusted institutions. Second, it highlights the difference between allocated and unallocated storage. Third, it shows that regulatory oversight is not always sufficient. Fourth, it creates a market for transparency and proof of reserves. Fifth, It's bullish for physical metal in your own possession. Here's the uncomfortable question. How much of the allocated metal sitting in vaults around the world is actually there? If the market is fractionally reserved, then the Perth Mint situation is just the tip of the iceberg. And if confidence erodes and customers start demanding physical delivery en masse, we could see a squeeze in the physical allocated storage market. Here's my final take. The Perth Mint scandal is a symptom of a deeper structural issue in the precious metals market. Too much leverage, too many paper claims, too little transparency. If you own precious metals and you're relying on someone else to store them, you need to verify that they're actually there. Don't assume. Don't trust blindly. Verify. And if you can't verify, take your metal elsewhere or take possession. This story is also a reminder of why people buy physical precious metals in the first place. It's about having an asset that's outside the financial system, that doesn't rely on someone else's solvency or honesty. True ownership means physical possession or allocated storage with bulletproof verification. Tell me in the comments, do you hold metal in storage or do you keep it in your own possession? And if you're using a storage program, have you ever verified your bar list or requested an audit report? If this breakdown exposed the risks in precious metals storage that most people never think about, subscribe and comment FinTalk OG. And share this with someone who holds metal in a storage program because they need to verify their holdings before it's too late. One last thing. This is investigative analysis based on public reports, regulatory findings, and industry knowledge. I'm not telling you to pull your metal out of any specific institution. I'm telling you to verify your holdings wherever they are. Do your own research, make your own decisions, and prioritize transparency and proof over reputation alone. All right, verify your holdings, reduce counterparty risk, and I'll see you in the next one.